All right. Uncle Andy is just quitting with any bit of foreplay, any bit of pleasantries, just coming in hot. Did 10 of these rookie and sophomore drafts last night. One guy I kept getting in the drafts with drafted Trey Lance and Justin Fields with his first and second round pick every time he could. I have seen the quarterbacks in those contests are hot commodities.
They are. Those are fun drafts. And I think that's one of the big decision points is how you approach quarterback, because there's a lot of opportunity cost in taking those quarterbacks. But, if Trey Lance, we assume he's going to be the starter, Justin Fields is going to be the starter, they give you that rushing upside. You can't really catch that anywhere else. Maybe you can with some of the rookies, but you certainly don't feel as comfortable with those, like with Malik Willis, because Malik Willis, maybe he gets the Trey Lance treatment and it doesn't start. So that's I think one of the most interesting things about this drafts is quarterback.
I like this. Yeah. Gretch had this idea. I like this. Why don't we just hop in one right now, and then maybe we can kind of talk about how we're feeling about some of the ADPs, some of our thoughts. I did a couple of these with Spags earlier today, and it was definitely hard, like finding clean stacks. Obviously with so much uncertainty. With
I haven't even thought about stacks. I'm just like taking guys I like.
I mean, the stacks we did one draft where we got the Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson. So that one made sense. And then we had a late, like Davis Mills, Nico Collins, Brevin Jordan that we got as well.
Yeah. That's kind of nice. I kind of like that.
It was cheap.
That's kind of nice. Yeah.
I mean, I've taken Davis. Did we take Davis Mills? I've taken him in some draft I've done with somebody and stacked him with. Did we do a Davis Mills, Brevin Jordan?
I think we did. In FFPC, I think we did.
Because I think, and then Nico's the only other guy in the Texans. I mean, we don't know where Cooks is going to play, but I feel like it would make even in a regular draft, it would make sense to do a backdoor late Davis Mills, Nico Collins, Brevin Jordan stack. I wouldn't hate.
Yeah. Holy cow. Yeah. JXP is in the ship chasing Discord. Tommy said he did 85 of these drafts yesterday.
That's fantastic.
Whenever I think I have a problem, I realize there's people that are far greater.
I've spent weeks just diving into the wide receiver class, and you've got a problem, dude.
I will say, I think we're probably all in agreement here. Massive tier break after Jamar.
But we have the 101. I haven't gotten the 101 yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I really want to take Najee Harris, guys. I really want to talk you into Najee Harris.
I've taken him at the 102. I've done I think 4 of these, and I've gotten the 102, the 103 every time. I mean, I think Harris makes perfect sense of the 102, but you got to take Chase.
Yeah, he seems like he's almost in a tier of his own there too.
As Evan said, we do have a friends and family draft. We got KZ at 1-2, Billy Joe 3, and then Evan here at the 3-4 turn. I do think, and Pat, I'm curious your thoughts from doing a couple of these today too, that the quarterback stuff is kind of the most interesting strategic wrinkle.
That's the decision point.
There you go. Like we got the Lance Fields guy. He took him at the.
They love it. They love it.
I haven't doubled up like that, but I get it because you're kind of like locking everyone else out of that rushing upside.
Yep. And I was just pulling up here real quick the set. So you're 1 QB, 1 running back. Yeah, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex. So 3 good receiver options here, or you're going to miss out on Lawrence if we don't take him with one of these 2 as well.
I'm Elijah Moore here.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'll put Moore in the queue, and then
if you want Lawrence, I kind of want to do ETN with him.
I'm okay missing Lawrence.
Yeah, I am too. Let's just skip the QBs.
I actually think if you're not taking Fields or Lance, then I've set out this tier of quarterbacks. I'm just going rookies.
But I feel like ETN and Breece Hall are better than Elijah Mitchell.
Who do you guys want one of these receivers?
Yeah, I'd be down with like.
I'd be definitely down with Devontae Smith.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say the other guy, but
Amon-Ra.
I mean, yeah, let's do Devontae. He's the safer pick with the draft capital and everything.
The one thing is, to Pat, if you are willing to punt quarterback, like most teams aren't taking more than 2. Sure, they can, but you're then kind of guaranteed QB7 and QB8. At that point.
Yeah. I've punted it once, and I've normally tried to get like 1. If I get a chance at Fields or Lance, then I'll take them. But I think punting is totally fine.
I do too. I mean, there's so much projection on these quarterbacks. It's not like we have a Joe Burrow, heading into this season too. Like there's legit question marks on all these guys.
Yeah. None of them were good last year. I mean, Mac Jones was good last year, but he doesn't give you the fantasy ceiling.
Yeah, JW, this is the exact combo that Spags and I did on one of our drafts earlier. And that's another thing probably to start to think about if you are ripping off 85 of these is people are getting funneled to combos. We mentioned that Lance Fields combo. Oh, wow. Lawrence does follow us.
Take Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm
good
fine with it.
patience there on that. And then, I mean, Mitchell's not bad here either.
Yeah, at this point, I think Mitchell makes sense.
The only
I
other
like Michael
option,
Carter too.
The only other option I would say is you could do something like a Zach Wilson, Michael Carter, Elijah Moore thing. But we can just grab Trevor Lawrence here to start.
I think Lawrence at this point. And you guys like Mitchell over Carter?
I think I'm Mitchell over Carter. Just even thinking about the gap in their ADP and the season-long stuff. I mean, Mitchell seems like a pretty good value here.
Yeah, that's sort of how I'm thinking about it. I like Carter too, but Mitchell was more productive, better offense. There's probably more competition for him to actually be the guy for the whole year in 2022, whereas Carter might have an easier path to do that, but Mitchell's upside feels bigger.
Yeah, that's kind of why I like Carter, and he was, he's more of a pass catcher. If things could kind of move in the right direction for him, and things could move in the wrong direction for Mitchell. But
yeah,
I like Mitchell.
Casey saying you're welcome because he passed
Mitchell's
on
scary.
Lawrence.
Yeah,
he is for sure.
Mitchell's a kind of classic dead zone guy.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with him in regular drafts right now. I mean, Moster's probably going to be back. Where else is Moster going to play? And that could just tank Mitchell right away.
Wow,
exactly.
Casey continues to punt it. I mean, I would love getting the Zach Wilson.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm into that.
And let's get Ramondre too. Or do you like?
Yeah, although I tell
more?
you, Walker and Spiller, I think, are good values.
Okay,
I think both of them are good values, and I think Ramondre. I don't know. It's like Ramondre's good. We know that, but he's not going to have the backfield to himself without an injury. The other guys are. We're not sure if they're good, but I think they have a better chance of their ADPs jumping up into the 6.
Who do you like more? You make the pick.
Landing spot. So I like Walker more of the two rookies, but I'm
You're not saying not to take Ramondre. He's frozen.
No, I'm not saying not to take Ramondre.
Yeah, we're taking Walker.
Okay. I didn't have enough time to actually say it, but I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. It's what do you want? Do you want to swing for the upside of getting a good landing spot with the rookie, or do you want a good player who is in an offense that will feed him if things kind of shape up the right way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what is fun about these different formats. It's I've done a bunch of the big board drafts. And I think I ended up getting one share of Elijah Mitchell where he fell to the late 5th or early 6th. But otherwise, I just was way too rich for my blood. But then in a format like this, I think we got him at a good cost relative to the position.
So who are we looking at here?
Because
those guys all went.
Casey's still on the clock here.
Okay.
He's sitting. I assume we're done at quarterback. Lawrence Wilson's a good duo.
I think. Let's see who he takes because
Bell.
Okay, so he took David Bell. I think David Bell right now is one of the keys to drafts. As I've done more research this week, I'm just I think he's just an absolute smash. So I was gonna pound the table for him, but I like George Pickens a lot here. Yeah, I like George Pickens a lot.
Okay,
Pickens has a huge ceiling, a huge ceiling.
And then who's the other pick? Do you like any of these running backs, Pat?
I like Kyron Williams a lot. I think he's got enough size. He's a pass catcher. He's pretty interesting.
Sorry, who?
The top guy,
Kyron. Okay. And there's not outside of ETN. There's not a single relevant freshman or sophomore pass catcher on the Jags, right? I'm not forgetting anyone.
I wanted to say Biscuit, but no, it's been too
bad.
Red
shirt junior.
Red shirt freshman at this point.
Yeah. This is a leading question from JW. Pat, would you say David Bell is
I would say David Bell's a home run. It's funny because we were doing this like baseball thing, and now I'm like, we should have just drafted him because I don't think we took him in that league we were in. But I think like I'm more excited about him than our boy Skye Moore.
Wow.
He kind of looks like he's like an Allen Robinson type profile. Like it's pretty exciting.
All right, you got
Travis May got me more excited about him.
Is this our last pick?
No, we do have a 12th rounder as well after these two.
Mechie, it has an ACL.
I think. I'm not into Mechie at all.
I would
like Nico.
Yeah,
Nico seems fun here.
What about Jalen Tolbert after that? What about going down to the next rookie? Because I don't really feel like Marshall.
Well, I mean, honestly, we should take Skye Moore because we might not get him in the friends and family draft.
Okay.
Skye Moore's he's an awesome prospect.
Yeah.
If he gets draft capital, I mean, he might not get draft capital, and then he won't be an awesome prospect. But
we're in the territory now where people are going to feel so gaslit that they can't tell if Skye Moore is a bit or if we genuinely like this dude.
Well, the thing about
1101.
No, I took him in all 4 drafts that I did today because he was available in the 12th round of every draft.
Okay.
I mean, what the people don't realize is we flag planted Visca and all these other guys and Rondell who failed so that we could just wait for the right prospect that we could talk about constantly and no one would take because they think they were terrible at this and we could just keep drafting him in every draft.
Exactly right. We will hammer it. When we're right, we will be very right because we do hammer our guys. We do.
Well, after we make this pick, I do think we should continue a little bit. I poked in and saw that conversation you were having in the Best Ball channel in the Deposit Kingdom Discord about Skye Moore, and I think we should. I think that's a good conversation to have relative to him being a bit or not.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about Skye Moore because I think he has a huge range of outcomes in terms of his pre-draft stuff. Are we on the clock? I think Rachaad White is a really good pick. I don't know if we need the running back.
I think we can be position agnostic here.
Anthony Schwartz is kind of interesting if you want another receiver. That's the one that I would be vaguely interested in. Unless you like a rookie. I don't know the rookies well enough.
I think White's would be my pick. He's got size and he's outstanding in yards per route run.
We started with 3 straight receivers. Like, sorry to take 4 running backs in this one.
Yeah, I've tried to take between 3 and 4 is what I've been doing.
But yeah, let's now we can kind of have a springboard for kind of talking about some of these guys here.
What do you guys think is kind of the ideal? Obviously, it changes a little bit depending on what you do early, but what's kind of like your ideal positional allocation for this?
Positional. I mean, I would say this like 2-4-6, or I think you can even get away with 2-3-7.
It's 1-1-2 with 1 flex.
Yeah, so 1 QB, 1 running back, 2 pass catchers, 1 flex, and then 7 bench. So max running back points you could have in your starting lineup is 2.
And I mean, the reality is that there are going to be young running backs who see big workloads. I mean, this is one of those situations where you might actually want to be a little heavier on backs. Like I was kind of thinking, broadly, you want the 7 receiver, but this is the kind of tournament where if you wind up playing 2 running backs every week, if you hit on some of these young running backs, you're in a good spot probably. And you only need 2 receivers. So if we have Chase and Elijah Moore and Devonta, like we're not in a bad spot. Like I think you could do 2-5-5.
Yeah. It just kind of feels like you need to be right? Like it's like you just need to pick the right players. I don't know that the positional allocations are going to matter that much.
I mean, that's why I do think. I mean, there is so little known correlations here that I do really, the fact that we got the Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore at that cost, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of teams who got the Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore stack with Wilson in the 6th. Like that's kind of unusual there.
Do you wish we had taken Michael Carter and no, like we didn't think we'd get Wilson, but.
Yeah, I guess there's scenarios where you just have the macro correlation where the Jets just, I don't know, are the Bengals of this year.
Smash.
They just smash and you want every piece. Like,
it's possible.
Yeah. Yes, everyone take notes. Just draft the best plays.
Got cap space.
You're welcome, guys. You're welcome. But
if I do think betting on Wilson. Like I mean, we're laughing about that, and it's funny to me too. But if we're betting on Wilson, if Wilson plays better, they have a different regime in place. They weren't great in year 1, but a lot of cap space this offseason, some draft capital. They got a couple top 10 picks. Like the Jets, they're not going to be the Bengals, but they could be a functional team next year for sure, especially if we're already betting on Wilson. I think I would rather have Carter knowing that we got Wilson for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too, but I just, I didn't think we'd have Wilson. So,
yeah.
Casey's team is interesting. He pushed that thought experiment to the max as far as waiting on quarterback. He took Pickett and Sam Howell as his only 2 quarterbacks at the very end, which is definitely pushing it.
I like that. I think that might be like, you're not going to feel comfortable with a lot of those teams, and a lot of those teams will probably be dead because like maybe one of those, maybe Howell's a second round pick, it doesn't really, he only starts like 3 games or something all season. But I do think that the way this rookie class shapes up at quarterback is that, there's going to be at least 3 guys taken in the first round, maybe up to 5 guys taken in the first round. And the NFL is not very good at evaluating quarterbacks, and we're worse. So I guess, if a guy has like rushing ability, and he's going to be a first round pick, then, I think he's going to be a really strong value. The issue is we don't know which of these guys are going to be the first round picks because they're all kind of jumbled together. But I like Corral a lot. I like Howell because those guys have rushing upside as well. At Willis, obviously. I think those guys are
right.
Pickett doesn't so much, but the argument for him would be he has a very high chance of being one of those quarterbacks selected in the first round. So he's kind of more like a cheaper Davis Mills or something.
Right.
The other thing Casey did that I really liked was I was making a comment before that maybe Najee was a clear 102, but I was thinking as I was saying it that I would probably want to take Waddle 102, and I thought that was baller. I mean, Waddle's
I took
really
Waddle
nice
over Javonte twice. I don't have Javonte because I kept taking Waddle at the 103.
Well, and too, I mean, it is a little spooky seeing that quote about Melvin Gordon potentially returning, and then all of a sudden it's like, are we really feeling good about Javonte Williams as a 1-2 turn pick in full drafts or at the 102 in these drafts? Like, there's a lot of risk there as much as we're excited about his talent.
Right, with a Packers led franchise now, the guys that came from the Packers that have been platooning running backs for years.
I hope he starts going in the late second. I want to take him there every time.
Melvin
Gordon was good last year. He is older, and the thing that we got out of Javonte's rookie year was that he's good. Like he's
good,
really good, and so
he's really good.
It's still this bet on talent. It's still this. Well, if anything happens to Gordon, we have a top 5 pick, basically. I mean, I would take him top 5 if Gordon was like injured in that scenario. Like Gordon's the guy they bring back. They don't really have a third running back, and Gordon gets hurt, and Javonte's going to get the whole backfield. That's second.
Well, and they get a quarterback. I mean, if they get a quarterback, he is a top 5 pick. That's the only thing holding him back.
I agree with that take that if you get a discount on him, the risk reward is definitely there. But I do think it's a little rich where he was going at the 1-2 turn. Like I'm not comfortable with him there right now.
I agree. Yeah.
So he'll probably wind up settling in the middle of the second, and then we won't have a clear play either way. Pat, I wanted you to elaborate on the quick discussion we were having about Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller. You also talked about Rachaad White for a second. I don't know the running back class very well.
I haven't dug as deep into the running back class. I feel more comfortable with receivers, but basically my take on the running back class overall is that there's 3 guys at the top. Breece Hall, who seems like fairly valued, is one of those things where, like, kind of to the Javonte point, going in the mid-second, I feel that way a little bit about Breece. I think he's probably a slight value, but he's not like a screaming value like anywhere in these or the regular drafts. But he's kind of the number 1 guy. He's probably like a David Montgomery type, maybe a little bit better, kind of a Josh Jacobs type.
Has
Should
size,
have some receiving ability,
has some
size,
receiving.
Capable receiver, elusive, but there doesn't seem to be like a strong consensus that he'll be the first running back off the board. And so therefore, I think Spiller and Walker are both really interesting because they have similar profiles. Spiller was not as much of a workhorse in college. So that's kind of the thing that separates him and Hall. And then Walker really was not used as a receiver in college. He has a 0.45 career yards per route run. That's about half of what Hall and Spiller have. But I was talking to Travis May, and he was saying that, he thinks that could be kind of system based for Walker, and that he was used as a receiver in high school. Like he has like the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, he thinks. So if that's true, then I think, Walker has a lot of upside. He was awesome this past year. So
these are all like sort of similar backs. They all have adequate size. They all are sort of early down, and we're hoping they have receiving. We've seen more receiving from Hall than I would have think about
it. We've seen about the same receiving, like at least from a yards per hour perspective. Hall and Spiller are very similar. They're in like they're kind of like in the Cam Akers camp of like guy who is probably going to be fine as a receiver, but isn't necessarily going to be like, like a really strong receiving talent. It's more like if a team is going to give him the workload, he'll be fine. Javonte Williams is probably in a similar camp where it's like, that's not like why you drafted him, but he could certainly handle it if you treat him as a 3-down guy. Mark Ingram, those types of backs. But yeah, they all have decent size. All three of those guys, they're all going to be like kind of around between 210 and 220. And, testing and everything will kind of help separate them probably. But to me, I'm like, hey, if Spiller gets drafted in the second and the other two get drafted in the third, you're going to be really happy you drafted Spiller. Or if Walker is that guy, and I think that's plausible. Like, it doesn't seem like the NFL is as excited about Breece Hall as we are. But I do think that Breece Hall is the best of the three right now. But I like the discount that you're getting on the other two.
So just, I know this is a very hard forecast just with how dependent these backs will likely be to landing spot, but just thinking through last year's kind of rookie running back ADP throughout the summer, Najee, 2nd round pick, you had Etienne and Javonte kind of 5th, 6th round picks, Michael Carter, 8th, 9th, like what realistic ADP bands do you see for these guys? Like, are all the guys we're discussing, like maybe going to be topped out at like a 4th, 5th round type ADP? Like, is there a 2nd or 3rd round ADP back in this group?
I think Hall could maybe be that guy, like a 3rd round pick, if he just like is in the perfect situation. I don't even know what that situation would be, but
Atlanta. I mean, like capital and
maybe
landing
Atlanta.
spot makes such a big difference with that. I mean, look at like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. At this point in his year, we were not that stoked, and then the Chiefs decided to take him in the 1st round. We're like, oh, I mean, people were excited about him, but he did not look like a guy who would be a 2nd round redraft pick as a rookie. And then as soon as he landed 1st round of the Chiefs, it was like, okay, he's going that high.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Sam points out that Walker right now in grinding the mocks has the best expected draft position of the three, which goes right to my point of, you're like Walker could be the guy who's drafted first. Maybe he's the favorite to be drafted first. I think that most likely it kind of, I think, is going to turn out a little bit like the 2020 rookie class outside of Jonathan Taylor and CEH. But remember, there was that group of guys that was like Dobbins, Akers, and Swift. It was all kind of like in the like mid 5th or maybe early 5th range. I think we'll probably see those guys, assuming.
And Taylor was only a little bit ahead of that. He was like 4th.
I thought he was more like 3rd.
Yeah, in high stakes, definitely by the end. But like in earlier August, especially in more casual stuff, like you could get him in the 4th every time.
Yeah, he was the guy that like was zooming up, because I remember he was part of that hyper fragile strategy where there was a time where you could get Jonathan Taylor as your RB3. And then that just became harder and harder to do.
He started when you started seeing him go off and like at the 303, that's when it was like, okay, he's risen a lot.
Yeah.
But
I was just going to say
1st round, actually, now that we think back to that, sorry to cut you off, but wasn't he like 106, 107 that year?
Yeah, he was.
That's crazy.
And he went 101 in FFPC drafts after the Thursday night game because he popped off. Remember that? I think that was against New England where he had that massive game. And he was just 101 across the board. And he still almost like paid it off just because that game was so massive.
I mean, I was considering him at the 103 in a post Thursday night draft there with some other buddies. We ended up taking Kamara, and that's a team that finished 19th overall. So that's funny now that you say that, going all the way back to that. We drafted that one after the Thursday night game, and we were looking at pick 3 because we had already taken another team, same group, with Kamara at, I think we had the 3 slot in both our 2 drafts that we did.
Yeah.
And we did Kamara in both. But
for those of you guys who don't know what we're talking about with the FFPC drafts, there's this dynamic with the live drafts in Vegas where a good chunk of them happen after the Thursday night games. And so you get to draft with the knowledge of how that game played out, and you get to bank those points in your week 1 starting lineup. So it's this constant wrestling with, do I want to get off to a fast start? Like, you book a win if you draft CH when he puts up 45, or do you not want to buy the top on a guy who you think just had his best game of the season and it's all downhill?
And I bring up Kamara because this was the year Kamara has the 6 TD game. I mean, that's why we finished 19th in the shootout.
Yeah.
Like, we fortunate, right? Because we were definitely discussing that.
Yeah. So another question in the chat here.
I want to just finish up on the running back thing real quick. That Breece Hall in this big board slow draft that I'm in, he went 603. And so, like, maybe he moves up a round if he gets kind of like your average spot, maybe a round and a half. But then Kenneth Walker, I took at 904, and then Spiller went at 910. So to me, it's like those guys, there's so much more room for them to move up, and not a ton of downside from there. So they're kind of priced much closer to their floor, I think.
Yeah. And Sam was also saying, do we think Miami could potentially be the best landing spot for a running back?
Yeah, that's a good call. I like that one a lot.
It definitely seems like one of the juicier ones. He also tosses in, Miami, Tampa Bay, lots of uncertainty there. Cardinals, if they don't retain,
Cardinals will be really good.
If they're going to bring both guys those dudes back, right? I kind of think Connor might be back there and Edmonds might not be, because Connor's the one who kind of stayed healthy, was more reliable. You know how teams are about that stuff. And he was good last year. That'd be interesting if that's where they went with it.
Yeah.
Connor
what was I going to say? Oh, Pat, flesh out that sneaky little comment you had about David Bell being the key to drafts right now. What did you mean by that?
So the thing about David Bell that, like, at first I was thinking, maybe he's not going to be all that highly drafted, but it seems like maybe he will be, like a second round pick. If he's a second round pick, his profile is really, really strong. And I think, like, compared to a guy like Skyy Moore, David Bell, I think, probably has a better chance of being a second round pick because, he wasn't in the MAC. Here's some good things about Bell. He's going to play his entire rookie season at 21 years old, or nearly. He turns 22 in December. He broke out with a 34% yardage share, 53% touchdown share, 44% dominator rating as a sophomore. He had very strong career numbers, 30% career dominator rating. He was very efficient as a junior. He had 2.7 yards per route run, which is very strong. He's pretty solid downfield. He's not like a big contested catch guy, even though he's kind of a larger receiver. He's not huge, but he's like 215. But he's not, unlike kind of Drake London, who's sort of like this jump ball guy. He looks like, he's actually able to get open, get targets, and also draw targets deep as well as in the middle of the field. So it really just comes down to, does he get the draft position, and was his inefficiency in the program because he was good in yards per out run, but he was not good in yards per target. So he's getting he was earning targets at a high rate. He wasn't so good in terms of yards per target. So does that come down to Purdue kind of having an inefficient offense, which they did? Or, does that say something about Bell? To me, it's like, if he goes in a strong offense and he's able to earn targets at a really high rate, and given kind of his profile and his production, I just think he profiles as a really high ceiling guy and a guy who could be ready right away.
That's intriguing. And
he's really cheap. He's really cheap.
And you think he could be a day 2 guy?
Yeah, I think he could be a day 2 guy. I think he'd be a round 2 guy.
That'd be nice. And then would your kind of bullishness on him drop if he's a round 3 guy?
It would drop a little bit, but with that type of profile, I'm still going to be pretty in if he's round 3.
Yeah. And then also the conversation I was mentioning that I saw you having in the Best Ball channel in the Discord, because Anthony Amico had a tweet about how Skyy Moore got outproduced by Eskridge in college, and you had some added context to what you thought might have been going on there.
Yeah, and I think Anthony's very, very high on Skyy Moore, but he was just like, oh God, he got bodied by Dwayne Eskridge in 2020. Like, this could be a problem. Yeah. But I think the added context is Skyy Moore only played 5 games in 2020, and he actually took a red shirt. Like, he's technically a redshirt sophomore. So I don't think we want to be like taking a ton of information away from his 2020 season in terms of like shifting our perception of this player. But also, Dwayne Eskridge was a 5th-year senior. He had a 45% dominator rating that year. So, like, you know, he's going off. Was a terrible pick by the Seahawks, like just an absolutely terrible pick. But Dwayne Eskridge is still like a professional NFL wide receiver. Like, he was going to get drafted, you know. So the fact that Skyy Moore had a 26% dominator rating as a sophomore, which is like, that's just good, kind of full stop. Like, if you have a 26% dominator rating as a sophomore, that's good. We'd like to see a big junior season, which he delivered, but there's nothing wrong with 26% dominator rating as a sophomore. The fact that he did that alongside a receiver who then got drafted in the 2nd round, and frankly is just an NFL wide receiver, because we are dealing with a Western Michigan wide receiver. I mean, one of the concerns is, who was he? Was he playing next to anybody? Did he actually have target competition? To me, it's actually a good sign that he did. He had some real target competition, and he,
who, as you pointed out, was
pretty good
3
production.
years older.
3 years older.
Yeah,
literally 23 years old that year. Skyy Moore was 20, and I was pointing out in the Discord, like, you know, Nelson Aguilar strongly outproduced Juju Smith-Schuster as they overlapped. Like, I just kind of like pulled up some guys that I thought would come to mind. N'Keal Harry kind of held Brandon Ayuk completely in check, and they were the same year, but Ayuk was a JUCO transfer, so it was his 1st year in the program. N'Keal's 3rd year in the program. So you see this a lot where a guy's, you know, got a couple extra years in the program, and he's older and he's able to dominate, and the other wide receiver isn't ready to take that full step into stardom at the college level yet. To me, there's like really no concern, especially because, again, he only played 5 games that season, and then he has this incredible junior year. And I don't know, there's just so much to like about Skyy Moore, because he also, you know, he played in the slot that year, then he played on the outside in his junior breakout year. So you see that versatility, because he was efficient in yards per route run in the year with Dwayne Eskridge, but he was even more efficient the year after. So to me, it's like kind of an interesting footnote that they played together, but it's not the type of situation where you want to be like really strongly adjusting your opinion on a 5-game sample where the guy took a red shirt.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point of it being a 5-game sample, he had a 26% dominator rating, like you said, and I just pulled it up. I mean, it was 29% yards, 23% TDs, and this is a tiny sample. I mean, it's 3 TDs in 5 games. Literally, if he had one more TD in this tiny sample, his dominator rating looks multiple
a breakout season
points
probably.
higher. It's probably a breakout season. I mean, we're talking about a very small sample. There's no telling that over more games. I mean, you put way more weight on the fact that he came out and had a 43% dominator rating in 2021, and also that he had 20% and it was 26% yards with 14% TDs. Like, he wasn't a big touchdown score, but as a true freshman comes in 26% yards. Was Eskridge on the team that year in 2019? I mean,
Eskridge was hurt. Eskridge only played 2 games in 2019.
But still, I mean, any true freshman coming in and putting up 26% yards, you're excited about, right? Even at Western Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be a legitimate red flag if it was reversed, or like not reversed, but to your point, let's say he scores 2 more touchdowns, he gets an actual breakout season in 2020, but Dwayne Eskridge has a 45% dominator rating, and then Skyy Moore doesn't have a very good 2021. So now his breakout season has this red flag of, well, he was getting completely outshined by Dwayne Eskridge, and it was his only good year. Is that something we want to put a ton of stock in?
Yeah.
And it was a partial year. We've got a 5-game sample where he was good, but not nearly as good as this other guy who we don't think is very good. And then we
don't want to put any stock in that. And we wouldn't. I don't think I would. And I think your point is that we shouldn't the other way, right? Like
we shouldn't the other way. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was bullish, it would be, we shouldn't put too much stock in it. It's like mildly bearish, and I don't think we should put much stock in it.
This feels like a good profile. I think we could keep pumping the Skyy Moore bags.
I actually think it's mildly bullish. My take is that it's mildly bullish that he played alongside a legit NFL wide receiver and had a 26% dominator rating as a sophomore. But I would totally understand if you think it's mildly bearish.
I forget, was it your podcast with Travis, Pat, that I was listening to, but just in hindsight, what made Ja'Marr Chase such a slam dunk, having the benefit of knowing how he played alongside Justin Jefferson, and then we saw Justin Jefferson crush. And like in hindsight, it just even seems more obvious. Like, why didn't I have even more supreme confidence in Ja'Marr Chase? Because I still had in my head, like, oh, CeeDee Lamb was the top prospect the year before. He's going 7th, 8th round in drafts. You know, Ja'Marr Chase is now going in the 4th round. Like, this is getting a little too crazy. Is there meat on this bone? And it's like, holy cow, he was out producing the guy who had like the best rookie season ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever get that again. We probably never will, you know.
Or, I mean, there's so many examples of that, but like AJ Brown and DK Metcalf both coming in and being stars, right? Yeah. And like AJ Brown like doubled him up in some stats in the games they played together in college. That's because AJ Brown's just that good. I mean, he made DK Metcalf's profile look worse because he did. Good.
He made DK Metcalf look like a boom bust lotto ticket.
Yeah.
He made wait, who was that? How am I blanking on his name? Who was the was it Dorial Green Beckham? That's how that was what I was worried about for Metcalf. So I was like, oh, this is that guy all over again. I can barely remember his name.
That's his name.
Sam actually points out, I said we'd never get it again. We're probably literally going to get it again next year. Jackson Smith and Jigba is like, pull up his profile, Ben. It's like, it's wild.
I keep hearing that it's wild.
It's wild. Yeah, pull it up. Garrett Wilson, right? Not going to be Justin Jefferson because, I mean, who's going to be Justin Jefferson? But Garrett Wilson looks really strong. You also have Chris Olave, who looks like maybe kind of like he's Marquise Brown, Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, but then Jackson Smith and Jigba might be Ja'Marr Chase, and they're all playing together.
JSN only had a 26 dominator rating this year. I mean, 32% yards. I thought I was gonna see like 35% even, but he's playing with 2 other first round picks. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, but he also had 1,605 yards.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the raw stats count for something.
That's the LSU thing, where like the actual dominator rating doesn't look good enough because they threw for so many yards.
His end of season box score is just absolutely silly. Look at this string of games starting in November. 240 yards, TD, 139, TD, 105, TD, 127, and then in the Rose Bowl, 347 yards.
And I mean, look at the receptions. Like that's even like 9+ every game and 15 twice. Like it's not easy to put up 15 receptions in a game.
No.
And he's also getting loose for big plays. I mean, look at the length on these passes. It's just, man, he's going to be fun.
He also, like, when you put on the highlight, he has like some sick catches. He had his catch as a freshman where he like caught it in the back of the end zone, got his feet in bounds somehow.
So what is his like stylistic comp like at this size? Because this is still a pretty small build relative to a lot of NFL
I mean, he's similar size to Ja'Marr Chase. He's similar size to, I guess he's a little shorter than Justin Jefferson, but I think Justin Jefferson was like slightly over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb.
Is DJ Moore bigger than that? He's like 210. That's who I was
DJ
thinking.
Moore's like 210, but
DJ
I think he's
Moore.
6 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, they're both like
That's a good
6
one.
feet, I think. I think they're sort of similar, Chase and Moore.
His stylistic comp is Garrett Wilson. That's
God.
what Tommy says. No, I won't. Sam says we're on a slippery slope to becoming a devy podcast. I don't think so. I think we're allowed to talk about next year's wide receiver one without this being a devy podcast.
I promise you, it'll start to become a very short podcast if it's a devy podcast.
Do you want to pull up? You want to demonetize this and pull up some Jackson Smith? Let's demonetize this.
I love that the stylistic comp is his teammate because it's exactly what we do with Alabama. Like all the Alabama receivers are the same. Like Jalen Waddle is Henry Ruggs and all this stuff.
Here we go.
There goes Pat.
No, I need a tighter edit. I can't be doing a 12-minute edit. Come on, give me the good stuff, YouTube. Where's my guy? Where's my editor that I loved? How about Bad Heat Creations? That sounds promising. Let's see this here. Cook's Mix is only 218 views, 35K views. Whatever. We'll go with this one. Bad Heat Creations. Let's see if we got to get a little theme music going.
I think the best thing that Jackson Smith and Jigba does is run routes. This guy is sudden, and you never know where he's going until he's already there. It's a mark of a great route runner. Watch that stop on a dime.
State football, but people talk about him like he's just. He doesn't look that fast. Like player, which doesn't really matter.
This is the catch I was talking about.
No,
that's a sick play.
His entire
I believe
body
he was a freshman when he did this.
That looks like a catch.
That's
and a
not
touchdown.
How does he get his foot back in on that?
I freaking love that stuff. That's DeAndre
clearly
Hopkins.
A touchdown.
He's not that fast. I mean, he's not like 4.3. He's obviously a good athlete, but
yeah, he's probably like 4.4, 4.5.
And because he's not big either, is all I'm saying. Like, obviously, the athleticism stuff does not matter as much as the production, but it's kind of interesting.
This was kind of the Chase conversation too, right? It's like, well,
Chase
it'd be nice
like
if he was more
4.3.
like 215 or 2.
Yeah, but Chase is like a 4.3. Didn't he test out of this world, or what is he? 4.4?
Yeah, I think he's like 4.4.
I feel like Chase is faster than JSN.
Yeah, I agree.
Guy that's played Ohio State before. You're popping it in front to Jackson Smith and Jigba.
It does even like the way they use him in this offense does feel like how the Bengals were using Jamar Chase at the end of the season.
It's a burst with some serious explosion.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of myself. That's caught.
He reminds me a lot of myself.
That was great.
Yeah, right. Between the hash is complete. Look out, Smith and Jigba. Yeah, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, who does you guys remind you guys of anyone?
No, I'm not really. I mean, like Keenan Allen, kind of. Which is not meant to be a dig, but like
Definitely like faster and more sudden than Keenan after the catch.
But like body size, I guess, because he is kind of slender and like not tall, you know?
Right.
He's definitely obviously running different routes than Keenan and has a different play style than Keenan, but that's who I was thinking of.
That's
all right.
Interesting.
A couple more.
Again, dumps it off. Smith and Jigba able to get to the edge of noise. He's the Ohio State quarterback. He'll throw it here on first down. Has all day and a money throw inside the 45. Freshman quarterback C.J. Stroud. Moving out of the pocket.
All right, have to end it before we become a devy podcast.
So, just a last note on him. I think, we should probably give Garrett Wilson a little bit more credit than we otherwise might. he had a 29% dominator rating this past year while sharing the field with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Chris Olave, who could potentially be a first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick. So Wilson is just someone who I think the numbers are just like going to have to miss on. Like the numbers couldn't possibly know the context that, Ohio State passing core.
Yeah. Look at you. The chat is so he's Garrett Wilson, but a little worse route runner. Doug says, remember, everyone looks good in highlight vids. Casey wants us to replay this when he becomes N'Keal Harry. I mean, good God,
wow.
You guys are embarrassed.
Wait, you got to go up a little higher because somebody compared him to Jerry Rice. I was just scrolling up. So we got that.
Yeah, we don't highlight the good stuff, only the bad costs.
Jerry Rice is a reasonable comp as far as talking about sort of the play style and stuff that we're talking about. Not obviously, I don't know how you comp anything to Jerry Rice, but
what we're doing is we're pumping your future 101 dynasty pick bags. If you want exit liquidity on those, we keep talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba here. Let's see.
What about here's one that's what about like a thicker Devontae Smith?
Okay. I can see that. Do you know who, honestly, like just his body type, and I know he's not as tall as him, but he looked like Robbie Anderson to me, like his build.
Yeah,
I can see that too. Yeah.
I could see that too, yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying Garrett Wilson, but a worse round. Yeah, that I thought that was a slamming him. Wouldn't that be implying that he's not as good as Garrett Wilson?
It's possible he's not. It's possible he's not as good as Garrett Wilson.
It'll be really interesting to see his next season. I mean, we know what he did with these guys. If he comes out and has another 26 dominator rating, like people are not going to be as excited this time next year.
Yep, that's right.
Let's see. What do you?
If it's with 1,800 yards, I think we'll get over it.
Ben, let's wrap up with a little Omni talk. I know most of my drafts are somewhere in the 8th, 9th, 10th rounds, chugging along here. What's the state of the union on Omni right now?
It's good, man. Next Tuesday is the second leg. Second legs of the round of 16 for the Champions League start. And so that's when we'll get our first official points for this year, because whoever advances from those second legs will be in the final 8 of the Champions League. So when we draft, there's 16 teams left in the Champions League. So we will be starting to have finalized results next Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the following Tuesday and Wednesday. And then the big that continues to, like, there's like month gaps between all the stages of the Champions League. That continues to stretch all the way until like June, I think. The big first contest around the corner also is March Madness, obviously, and then that ends in early April. That's the first sport to finalize. But yeah, the drafts are all ongoing. We did the big Omni Cup thing with the Ship Chasing Cup. There's the 3 drafts that we're all doing, which is going to be great. But then we have the big Omni Cup thing that I think a lot of the listeners are in. There's 144 people in it, 12 teams of 12. All those drafts are at least in wherever Pat's draft has made it to, because that's the one that's been bringing up the rear. At least in the 7th. Yeah, they're about to finish the 7th. We got some drafts that have, for that Omni Cup, that have already reached the 11th round, and that started last Thursday.
Wait, I'm in the slow one for the Omni Cup too, as well as the Ship Chasing Cup?
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the common variable is
you.
there.
There's no way to tell what the common variable is.
Gretch, what's the chatter? Because this does seem to be one of the biggest keys to Omni drafting right now, is how you're thinking about the MLB season. Have you, I assume, is there anything structurally that you have to worry about? If this
I don't think I put it in the rules, actually, which I should have. But 2020 was a weird one where we had a bunch of like money leagues that you had college basketball and the Euro, which is like, we're doing World Cup this year. It's their, European soccer championship that's every 4 years, got canceled. And it's kind of tough when you have 2 sports get canceled, and some people took them early, some took them late. We didn't know what to do with it. A lot of the leagues I was in, I was kind of rattled because I won like 3 of my Omni. I had like 5 and I won 3 of them, but we decided just like we couldn't pay out, basically. Easy choice for other people to make when they didn't win. But
let's not pay Ben.
what we decided, yeah, exactly. What we decided for the future years at that time, and again, I don't know if I put in the rules, but it's like now we're just going to establish that if something happens and a sport can't be played, like everyone can zero. So it's just the way that it is. Like that's what there's no other way around it other than it's the only fair way. You're taking on whatever risk you want. We knew about the lockout when we were drafting. I personally still think it's 95% or higher that the MLB has a World Series this year. Like they've canceled 2 series. Maybe they cancel some months. That's still another big step forward. But once they start canceling months and we get into the summer and they're supposed to have the center stage and they're not playing baseball in June and stuff, are they really going to carry that all the way through 6 months of, the baseball season's so long? I'm of the mind that we're going to have at least a shortened season, even if they make it to like June and they're locked out. Can you guys see a scenario where they really cancel this whole year? I mean, that seems crazy to me.
That seems crazy, especially because baseball's not in a position to be canceling seasons.
No.
You need every season. If anything, you should be having 2 seasons because
if you cancel baseball, you're like that kid that went away for camp and never come back, and like everyone just kind of forgets that you ever existed in the first place. So I mean, it might just
people are gonna find something else to do in the summer than going to baseball games, and they're not coming back.
I mean, that's GG for baseball if they take a year off.
Do not take a year off baseball.
I gotta think by the time we get to June, July, those summer months where like there's not a lot going on in the sports world other than baseball. Like we're gonna see baseball. Like they can't not figure that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean if it does get canceled, I'm just making it clear here, like it will be zeros for everyone. I've been taking a bunch of MLB players reasonably early or teams reasonably early too. So
yeah, I took them reasonably early as well. I guess because there was kind of a value there. And I was like,
yeah.
I know. I honestly keep forgetting because every time I go to look at the available positions, I'm like, oh, the Mets look like a decent value here. I'm like, oh yeah, baseball might not happen. That's why they're still here. Any other trends, Ben, across the leagues that have surprised you so far, or is it kind of going along expected points?
I haven't really dug a ton. Yeah, it's been going along expected points. I think we've talked about the Chargers in a few places as an interesting futures bet. Maybe on this show, I know me and Sean talked about it on Stealing Bananas a little bit. I see the Chargers go like 6 picks earlier than their expected points in every draft I'm in now, and I'm like, God damn it, I had to go and open my mouth. Now I can't even pick the Chargers. I've not been able to take them in any draft. They go really early. I saw them go ahead of the Bengals, who have much higher odds. The Bengals are in a similar spot with a rookie quarterback, and like I think I would take the Bengals straight up. They're the team that was just in the Super Bowl, but I mean, I get it. I get taking the Chargers as well, but that's been an interesting one. I don't know, man. As far as trends, it'll be fun to dig into once we've looked at it a little more.
So can I ask you guys, because I probably did 3 last year or something, maybe 4, but I'm in 4 right now simultaneously. And I said last week that's like, hey, look, if you took this Champions League team in one draft, maybe take another one in the other draft. I've completely abandoned that strategy, and I'm just taking the same teams in every single one of these drafts because I'm like, I did the research. I know I like this team. I have Brazil in every single draft. I'm rooting for Brazil this summer. Let's go.
I mean, I love that.
Bonita.
That's when I was saying 2020 was the first year we had the site and had built it out. I didn't do any of the building. Shout out Kevin Zatlukel. And I had a couple players like that, Pat, and they hit. Like Dustin Johnson that year was like the 6th golfer or something because he had a bad 2019, but he was still like good. And I took him in like the 6th round of a bunch of drafts, and he won the 80 for golf. And I was like,
nice.
It was huge, like across multiple leagues, So it's really similar to fantasy football. Like, do you want to put all your eggs in one basket or not? I don't think it's bad. Like, you're still going to be a little bit differentiated across the different teams. Turns out I'm going all in on Brazil. I find myself in the same spot, dude. I've taken the same like NASCAR drivers multiple times because I read somewhere that they had like lowered the horsepower the last 2 years, but they brought it back up. Anyone who knows NASCAR is listening to this and pounding the table about how stupid I sound. But I had this idea in my head that the guys that were good before 2 years ago that haven't
Are
done
gonna be
so
good
good the
again.
last couple of years might bounce back. Like Kyle Busch is an example of that. Hasn't done as good the last couple of years, but
he got drafted early in one of the drafts that I'm in. He got drafted like
right.
3 spots ahead of his expected points.
Maybe someone knows something. I took him in a couple drafts. I took like Denny Hamlin and these old school dudes. And I did that as well with hockey. I keep taking the same freaking hockey teams. I have like Carolina and a couple of them that are looking good.
So I've been drafting Carolina.
I think I took
Let's go
Carolina.
Hurricanes.
Let's go.
Hurricanes. All right. Hurricanes are the
Yes.
ship chasing team.
Yes.
Play the clip.
Do you guys do the thing where if like someone makes a pick outside of the expected points, you're like, what the fuck do they know that I don't? Like every time I see them, I'm like, God, they know something. And I also, it's funny too, like this happens where I always use the example, like read a New York Times article, many years ago about DFS. And you're like, yeah, that's kind of portrayed wrong, or that's not actually how this works or whatever. And then you think about all the other things you read and just take as truth because it's in a paper of record or whatever. That's how I am with the expected points. And then I look at the NFL ones and I'm like, I don't know about this. There's holes there. Are they actually have? And then I'm like, but I'll just blindly tail the expected points in any other thing. And I'm like, think about all the holes probably you could poke in this guy I'm picking right now.
And another thing I want to say, and I should have done this before, but I've been trying to keep up with the Omni Cup drafts, which there's 12 of them, and I'm in 4 of my own, like Pat was saying. So I think I'm tracking like 15 drafts, but I need to update the expected points. They're like a couple of weeks old now. There has been some shifts in sports. So just heads up to anyone listening to the show. No. There's some free alpha, as the boys say. You might want to actually go look at the futures odds. Expected points are based on the Pete loves it every time I drop it at him.
I got rugged by these stale expected points.
The expected points are based on sims that are run on the futures odds. If the futures odds shift, the expected points would look different.
Well, see, that's why, listen, everyone's like, oh, you got to make your picks. And me and Liam, we get it. You sit on the clock because you wait until the expected points get updated. You see, we have more information.
I mean, I should do it. I'll try to do it tomorrow or something. But it's going to shift. Especially like hockey, college basketball, NBA, not so much. They don't usually get like huge shifts in their futures odds, but probably some. But hockey, there's been some shifts for sure, and college basketball definitely. There's been some shifts.
Oh, has there? Because I've been drafting extremely blindly off of the college basketball expected points.
I mean,
except like I looked up Auburn has like a.
What's that?
I just want I saw that Auburn has a guy that's going to be like a very high NBA draft pick, so I've just been hammering the shit out of Auburn.
So Auburn is one of the teams that lost some regular
damn it.
season games, and so then their seed could be a little worse.
Oh no,
they're still up there. They're tied for
how's Purdue
fifth
doing?
Best odds now, and they're tied for 4th best expected points, so they're not way off. Purdue's moved up from our expected points.
They just lost last night to Wisconsin, though.
Oh, did they bounce back? So they're 4th, and they're tied for 4th here. They're similar. It's not like major shifts at the top.
Fix your site.
I know. I got it. It's not major shifts at the top. I would say once you get to like the 8th to 15th college basketball teams, if you're kind of waiting until the late rounds, there are some teams that are have moved up. Let's see. I mean,
Providence has been on fire too since these were updated. I know,
they haven't. Their odds have not improved that much. They're still 71 on DraftKings. I'm looking at it right now, 70-1. But Tennessee's up to 35-1. That puts them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They're 12th best odds on our site. They're like 15th to 18th or something. So I mean, when we update the expected points, Tennessee's going to come way up. I mean, it might look weird now to draft this team that has low expected points. As the 12th best college basketball team, but like it's going to update. We're going to update the expected points at a certain point. So
leak.
Go look at the actual futures odds if you're not sure about some of these sports.
I'm getting very angry with the chat. We've got a comment here. Auburn has 2 guards that refuse to pass the future number 1 pick. LOL. That doesn't sound great. And then also Spensby says Purdue also a notoriously underperforming 20 team. So I'm just hammering. These are the 2 teams. I don't think I've taken any other teams but these teams because they tend to stick around, probably for good reasons.
I took Purdue in the 5th round a few years ago, and they got me 0. And they were like one of the top NCAA teams that regular season, and I don't think I've gotten over it. So might be you a year from now.
And I will say too, I mean, the futures odds are are obviously important, but I would say seeding for NCAA across a
Yeah.
lot of them is the more meaningless. You're not getting home field advantage. The teams you're playing, are roughly the same caliber. So I don't know.
Well, the only reason, I agree with that. The biggest thing for me is the 1 seeds. I have poked in on and tried to keep an eye on like if the 1 seed line is changing what in all these bracketologies that people are looking at, because the 16 seeds are obviously sort of just walkthroughs. We've had one ever win there. And then the 8-9s, I feel like the 7-10 game, we get more 7-2 upsets than 8-9-1s, I'm guessing. I don't actually know that for sure. But it feels like the ones a lot of times can kind of, if they're good enough, walk into the Sweet 16, and then they're essentially 1 game away from the Elite 8 where you get points. I mean, that it's not a home field advantage thing. It's more about the seeding thing where it's like the 1 seeds do have sort of an advantage in that regard.
Yeah.
Can I?
Go ahead.
I was just curious how you guys have been treating like flexing and doubling up, because as I did this, I didn't know if this was a good strategy or bad strategy, but I just did it. In the 6th, I took Auburn, and in the 7th, I took Purdue, and those are like, I think the 4th and 5th, or the 3rd and 4th teams on the list, something like that. So, maybe is that too early to where you'd be doing that? Because I also thought about doing it even earlier, like I think maybe the 5th and 6th, or even the 4th and 5th, or something. I was going to take the 2 top MLS teams, but I just took 1.
My thing with the early flexes is I'm definitely willing to do it in the sports where you feel more comfortable projecting the final 8. Like one of the ones that's really interesting for early flexes is NASCAR, because but it's a little bit different now because there are like some of the old guys haven't done as well the last couple of years. There's some new guys, but there's typically been like a top 8 to 10 drivers, and the final 8 usually is from that group because they're kind of like the lead drivers on their teams and all this stuff. And so if you're going to like kind of bank points and also get 2 shots at getting the 80, because they have a final race where only 4 guys qualify for, and whoever wins that race out of those 4 is the winner. And NCAA would be one of the ones that I would strongly not, and then probably MLS would be the second most likely that I would strongly not flex early. The 2 that it's really hard to predict the final 8.
I'm learning.
Historically, they're tough to predict the final 8. The odds are
I avoided one of the rookie mistakes.
Pat's like, I've been drafting the same 2 MLS teams in every single one of these.
No one knows. You just take the top 2 MLS teams on the 1-2 turn and you print money.
And I mean, the other just it kind of goes to how I don't know, the same we think about best ball strategy, right? Like if you use an early draft pick on, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, like you're not wanting to load up on more quarterbacks. I do think in a lot of these sports, like if I'm using my pick on like the top 1 or 2, like I've made my big bet, and I don't necessarily want to like hedge against a really big position where I'd rather take shots on, 6, 7 seed where I don't have a top guy.
That's what I do. So, I use my flexes a lot of times in the middle rounds on sports that I don't love the top picks for. Like hockey's a good example. A lot of times the very top teams, I mean, they actually have, I think the Lightning have been the top Omni pick the last 2 years and won both years. They're the 2-time defending champs. But like the 8th hockey team and the 10th hockey team can win the title. And so I'll probably take a couple in that range. And like, then I'm like, I got, and I a lot of times.
So what rounds would that be? Kind of like early double digit?
It depends kind of on the draft, but probably, or a little bit earlier than that, maybe. But I'm kind of like, I want 2 teams in the tournament for hockey because we have an idea on the regular season standings, like who's going to be in. And I kind of often do 2 separate conferences as well, which I'm sure a lot of people when they're flexing are thinking about. Like now there's still at least a scenario where my 2 teams can meet in the championship and I can get the 80 and the 50. Whereas if you take both from the Western Conference, that they at best are going to meet in their conference championship.
Right.
Baseball is another one like that I like to do a couple, and MLS I like to flex, but I like to wait and flex the 10th best team or the 11th best team in a little bit later rounds. Another one said, how many points have you needed to win historically? I've gotten that question a couple times. We added some sports, like we added F1, which puts more points in the player pool. But historically on like a 12-team league, you're looking at like 300 to 350. I think this year, like probably on the 350 side, we'll win the 12-team leagues. Somebody's going to really hit. Last year, Paul won our ship chasing cup. I think he was at 470.
480 or 470. Yeah, I just pulled it up. Oh, that's not the screen I wanted to share. That's the StreamYard itself. getting sleepy.
Don't share the StreamYard.
Yeah, that one's probably not representative of
But
the meeting.
if you want to win
you
the
have
Omni
the
Cup,
actual
if you're in the
draft of
Omni
what he
Cup-
did?
Yeah,
If you're in the Omni Cup, I think someone's probably going to hit 500.
Or the big, pull up the big board. Oh, the draft breakdown. Nope, the big board. I think you can get a Steve.
Yeah, that's it. He hit on 12 of his 18 picks was the cool thing. He only had
Holy
6
shit.
zeros. So he
Paul
painted
just
it.
smash this.
Yeah. And I think that's tough to do, but I think he got a little bit unlucky.
Is it?
Not in terms of high scoring, I wouldn't say unlucky, but like some of these teams could have potentially gotten even a little bit further. Like he could have had another runner up and boosted a few more points. Like I think we'll have a 500 pointer is what I'm saying. There also was an F1 in this contest. There is this year. So there's more points available. I think we're going to have at least one 500 pointer. It might be 550 that you need to win the whole thing. So like in the Omni Cup, I haven't been flexing as much early as I normally do in smaller leagues because I'm trying to get every 80.
get the nuts. Yeah. That makes sense.
I like the addition of F1. I think it's made the first round picks a little stronger.
That is true. That the first round, it did seem like there was more of a cliff last year.
Right. It pushed stuff towards the turn and stuff, right?
Yeah.
That was sort of my feeling. That's why I kind of liked leaving it in after doing my first one with my college buddies because I think I mentioned this. 3 F1 drivers went the first 4 picks. But then when you were picking later, you're like, it's a 16-team draft, that one. And there were still like good picks at 16. And I was like, yeah, I don't hate that. I mean, if people want to really hammer the top-heavy sport, then it pushes stuff down. And you can get the Dodgers at 16. Okay, great. You know, like they're the top baseball team. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds good. It sounds like, I mean, you guys are going to probably do a show with me, without me next week. You'll probably be wrapped up with most of these drafts by then. I would hope so. Unless Pat and Liam have other ideas.
Yeah. I mean, most of the drafts will be wrapped up for sure.
I'm hoping. And anyone who's listening,
Most of them.
if you want to start your own draft, go for it. The 2 things I would say, 1, you either want to try to draft pretty quick and get done before next Tuesday, or 2, maybe consider not using Champions League because there's going to be results finalizing like probably during your draft. But broadly, we are kind of reaching the end of Omni draft season. We'll probably check in with some updates over time, but this has sort of been our Omni month, and we'll probably be back with it like next February,
Hey, life will come by. We'll come at you fast.
I actually do think obviously watching the sports and everything, that's one of the benefits of doing Omni. You get to like have some stake in the sport. But I actually think doing the research on some of the sports is part of the fun too. So
Definitely.
I've enjoyed Omni month.
Yeah, for sure. I've had fun. I've been co-managing the ship chasing cup team with Willis, and it's been fun to bounce ideas off of him as well, and to load up on some teams that you actually are excited to root for, especially
Brazil,
the World
baby.
Cup. That has been one of the teams or leagues that I've wanted to have a couple, just because I'm like, it'd be fun to have a couple horses for the World Cup.
Yeah, I did. You kind of box yourself out when you take Brazil in every league. Then you don't want to
Well, World Cup's interesting because, I mean, historically the winners, World Cup and Euro and some of the other soccer tournaments, historically the winners are from the top countries. Like you don't usually see massive upsets, but almost every one you do see someone make a run. Like in Euro last year, we had Denmark make the semis. Euro before that, or maybe it was 2 before that, we had like Wales. I remember when they had Gareth Bale. I know a little bit about soccer. He made the run. He helped Wales make the run to the semis. In the last World Cup, we had Croatia go all the way to the final. They almost did win it, but France won it over Croatia.
Oh, yeah, I remember that Croatia year. Yeah.
That was sweet. Luka Modric,
Yeah, that was,
I think. Is
Modric.
Nash. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really fun year.
So that is a fun one to have a top horse, or you're going for the 80, and also maybe take a late
at a dark horse.
Like I took Uruguay in my first one, and I'm kind of stoked about them potentially. They still have to get in, which is part of why their odds are so long, but they're pretty good, I think. About them potentially making a final 8 run. You can pick countries like that, and a lot of them are good enough to potentially make a final 8 run. So
all right, I'm gonna figure out some dark horses. If anyone knows of dark horses, let me know, because I don't know anything. That's why I took Brazil. That's why I took Brazil. That's partly why I took them, because I was like, Brazil's good. I read about Brazil. They've got like they can score. They've got like strikers and stuff. I think they're like backfield or whatever is like aging. It's not as good as it used to be. I'm like, great. please, goals are all I want. So
it does explain why I've been waking up to these DMs from you where you just say Ronaldinho, bitch, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
35
I got a little carried away.
So yes, these guys will be back next Wednesday without me to recap Omni, and I'll see what else you guys get up to. But most importantly, it means you guys get a Pat Corain thumbnail next Wednesday.
Exactly. I mean, you don't have to tell people that you won't be here next week because they're gonna see on the thumbnail that you are not here.
Yeah, it basically has come out now to about twice a year. I normally go on a trip in March and take a little time off in the summer. And that's when Pat dusts off his MS Paint skills. So
I get in the lab, baby. It's gonna be good. I already have an idea for this one. I'm excited.
I can't wait to see that. Anything else coming up from you guys? Ben and Sean pumping out Stealing Bananas episodes. I was on one last week talking best ball. That was a lot of fun. Anything else?
Killer episode. If anybody hasn't heard that, Pete crushed it.
That was very fun. Anything else from you, Gretch, Pat? Any prospect articles coming?
We are going to be doing tomorrow. I'm going to be talking to Eric Froton, who's at the Combine, and we're going to be talking about the workouts that are taking place tomorrow. So that podcast I'm recording at 11:30 tomorrow night, and we're going to get it out. So check your podcast feed Friday morning. We will be discussing the workouts from Thursday.
Nice.
Awesome. And also put in a plug, hop in the Deposit Kingdom Discord, whether you're ship chasing VIP, get access to that channel. Also have a general best ball channel. We got dynasty channels in there. We got the Omni channel, all kinds of stuff. If you're playing fantasy, there's probably a channel in there for you. Appreciate you guys hanging out as always on a Wednesday night. Good luck in your Omni drafts. Good luck with your devy chasing. Good luck with your underdog drafts. We will see you next time.